Okay, this one's no good deed. Thinking back to her first days in freedom, she stopped to rest, feeling sick from spending a week without eating anything, having had no luck in hunting the few animals she encountered in her travels. As she laid herself to rest in the murky puddles at the base of the tree, she felt her stomach twist. She thought of the river of water she drank not that long before. Shit, that pain was clawing and clawing at her innards, pulling at her bowels, to the point where she thought even avoiding them sounded like soft torture. Thought of anything even lying in her stomach disgusting her more than ever. She curled into a tight ball, her small fists locking into her gut, her breath quickening. Her bowels pinched and she forced herself up so she could squat somewhere and let it void in burning gushes, feeling like it was making boils in her rear. And so it went several more times, or maybe a few hours. But is it better than before? She groaned and tried not to think about it. She heard the sound of some heavy, sloshing footfalls coming in her direction. She groaned and struggled to get to her feet, struggling to stay away from the waste of her labor. She slipped through the mud into the bushes that penetrated and ripped her sensitive skin. She knew her legs and feet were sticking out, but she still played dead. It was all she had at the time before the darkness set in. What come, what may. Mukuro awoke in near darkness. She squinted her eyes as she started to get her bearings, suddenly realizing that she was bundled up, cocoon-like, in some musty-smelling blankets. She looked around the room, her breath quickening again, not recognizing the dresser or that particular positioning of the door. Then the heavy footfalls returned, creaking the floor like the horrifying creaking of bed springs. She clenched her teeth as the door opened. It was a large older man, old enough to start getting wrinkles and gray hairs and large enough to cover what was beyond the doorway. In his hands, he held a steaming bowl of soup. He placed it on the dresser before crouching at the edge of the bed so the two could be at eye level. "Good morning, little girl. I guess you're wondering what you're doing here. I saw you sleeping outside when the snow was starting to come. Did you notice that? I knew you were in the bushes, and you were pale as milk, so I took you in. Really, what were you doing sleeping in the snow like that?" She didn't answer. She just stared with eyes so wide she could feel her face starting to stretch. After a few moments, the man asked, "Where's Mama? Where's Papa?" She still refused to answer. "Can you talk? Little girl, where's Mama and Papa? Are they gone?" He put his wide, hairy claw on her shoulder. She jerked her head towards the offending weapon. The crow started to grit her teeth. The beast growled on. "I'm so. She grabbed his hairy throat as he leaned in to engulf her in some sort of parody of a hug. She knew what would come next if she let him get that far. She dug in her nails and the beast pulled back, flailing a bit, which is enough to knock the bowl of soup over, shattering it. Girl grabbed a shard and shoved it in between the beast's eyes and took another, jabbing it down its maw and into its throat, turning screams into gurgles. To make sure it would die, she started to pound it in with her palms, slapping his flailing claws away. He sat on his chest so she could watch him die. When she saw what she had done, she walked into the kitchen and ate the soup right out of the pot. Too bad he would never make it again. The older man. The beast. There was no particular reason why Mukuro decided to go to the human world. Breath of fresh air, change in atmosphere, a chance to unwind after spending days in a relatively low-stress job, or maybe it was just answering its damn siren's call to see what Horizon saw, what this world had that corrode demon pride so easily. Whatever the case was, she found herself at a temple of sorts, the fabled Genkai's temple, where quite a few demons made their first check-out point for convenience sake, rather than out of interest towards the residents of said temple. Not that there was usually anybody there, from what he had said, since Genkai passed. The temple was left uninhabited most days if there wasn't some sort of holiday or break from school, though Yukino would come by every other weekend and every other month, would stay for a week to make sure the place stayed clean. Apparently, she would leave a note so no one would go searching for her like she was the damn queen of the world, and even went as far as leaving the house in the middle of the night just to ensure her solitude. To prove something. She promptly changed the subject when he had tried to pry the truth out of her, which was pretty much comparable to pulling out teeth. Though Yukina at this point still has no clue where she could have gotten that from, only that she has a habit of going through a long period of redemption following these escapades. Taking a look at the scenery, Mukuro saw it was as Ryzen said and just how she imagined it to be, like a bad calendar photo op. One of those things extreme religious fanatics use when they want to give a visual for their kiss on the cheek quotes. Not that landscaping was what brought Ryzen to his knees, though the secret romantic fool that he was had a sort of attraction to that too, as strong as the attraction for that woman was, even. Enough. She stepped onto the wooden floor, reached out to slide the door open, but stopped midway, having heard a loud "oh" from beyond. Mukuro turned her head just enough to glance at the culprit, Yukina, looking just as he remembered her, as his memories drifted into Mukuro's consciousness. She stood in the doorway, a hand clutching the edge of the door frame, the other balling into a fist at her chest. "You're a visitor, aren't you?" she gasped again, and did a sort of sloppy bow, nearly smacking her head on the doorframe. "There are plenty of rooms here if you wouldn't mind staying here for the night. I need to go back and clean the rooms first if you were..." She clenched both of her hands to her chest, eyes shifting side to side like a mouse knowing it was going towards a predator's territory. "You're awfully trusting, aren't you?" Mukuro asked. She cocked her head to the side, awaiting the inevitable apology. "Oh, but you wouldn't hurt a poor helpless girl like me, would you? Even if I've done nothing more than offer you a place to stay and a nice warm meal made especially for you? Besides, women don't hurt women. They just say some rather rude things and leave before they can apologize to make sure it hurts." "Still kind as far as people go. I've seen women do much worse than that. Can't trust them, not one, now can you?" "If you were, you wouldn't be able to eat my special dinner. Would that really stop me?" "No, but if you did mean me harm, you would have done so already. Since you're just saying this to test me, I suppose you're one of his friends. He does the same thing to me, you see. Everyone worries about me so much, but it's like they think I can't take care of myself." She shrugged but quickly drew her arms back. "Well, would you like to come in anyway? Just to rest for a bit?" Mukuro was severely tempted to say no, considering that her journey only took 2 hours on a slow day, but she decided just to see what the goddess everyone seemed to be fussing about was like. That one a brother would lay down his life for. That lucky bitch. That stupid lucky bastard. She sat on the porch, turned towards Tsukino, who blushed as though pleasantly surprised someone took her offer. In a moment, her pink-tinged lips turned back to their damn perfect baby doll white. She really needed to sit in the sun. "Your name, it's Yukina, right? Isn't it?" Kuro asked. Yukina twitched and turned rosy again as she nodded. "You're just as I thought you would be. My friend," she nearly tripped on the word herself, "mentioned you a few times. I mean. He mentions all of you, but you and Kuwabara are the only ones I haven't met." She thought of his comments on Kuwabara, most of which were variants on the word jackass. That's as close as the man could ever get to calling anyone a friend. Stupid lucky bastard. She smiled a bit at the thought nonetheless. Well, this is awkward, then. You seem to know about me, but I know nothing about you. Knowing someone's name and taking someone's word on one's personality traits doesn't mean that I know anything about you. Honestly, I figured out who you were based on the process of elimination. Yukina is a woman and Kuwabara is a man. Half-truth, actually. Basically strangers, either way. Yukina shifted on her feet, rocking side to side. Let me guess your name. Her brows knitted tightly together, and after a few minutes she started to chew on her lip. Don't try too hard. Mukuro could see the smoke coming out of her ears. Mukuro was about to mouth the first syllable, but Mukuro waved a finger at her. She clapped her hands and then smiled. Mukuro! No. I know he's mentioned that name a few times. It's the only name I didn't recognize when he said anything, and when he mentioned that you were a friend of his, that means you must be. After a pause. Well, you thought right. I'm glad that he had found a friend. Yukina bit her tongue and made her girlish gasp. She jerked her hands around. I don't mean that he's incapable of making friends or anything. It's just that he tends to keep to himself. I think he really should have more, connect with us more so he wouldn't be lonely. Her cheeks grew redder and redder as she rambled on to the point that they were just about matching her eyes. Eyes the colors of fresh roses or fresh, ripe cherries. Eyes the same color as his. The eyes the color of blood or freshly sliced flesh. Losing track of things. Not that you really need a lot of friends. If you prefer to be alone, that's okay too. It's just that I think you should have at least one close friend. We all want companionship, but what we all want and need are different things. What you want and what you need are never the same thing. Crow shifted her seat and stared out into the distance. It was still deathly quiet. The sort of quiet that meant someone was going to murder you soon. Damn, that's a natural beauty. The sky. It's a strange color, isn't it? Kina gave the sky a second glance. Is it really? I thought it was normal. It's red where I'm from. Where I'm from, the sky was... Well, I don't remember much about the sky where I'm from. I never thought much about it. Of course you wouldn't. You could look at it whenever you download, please. Oh, but I think I do remember. Once Kazuma was studying, and I was helping him, and one of the questions was about why the sky is blue. Let's see... It had something to do with the sky absorbing the color blue. And it changes color at sunset? Actually, Mukuro had a feeling she knew the reasoning why, but she figured it would go over Yukina's head. No, I was never any good at remembering things from books. I always get embarrassed when everyone teases Kazuma about his studying skills, since I'm as bad as he is. Worse, actually. I'm not completely sure because I have never seen his classes, of course, but I was always the bottom of my class because I could never focus. I'd always stare out the window or I'd fall asleep. When I did, the teacher, you were supposed to call them sister. When I did, the sister would come and hit me on the knuckles once with the ruler. Once I fell asleep and I mentioned something about my brother in my sleep, I guess, and she hit me on the knuckles and had me stand up. And then she said, you go in the back of the room for the rest of the day. So what I had to do was stand holding buckets of snow with my arms like this, and I'd if I dropped any snow, she would add another bucket for me to bounce on my head. I've never seen a person go further than that, though. You'd think it would be more common. Anyway, she held me back after class until she was ready to walk me home. She was steaming mad at me, and her nostrils were flaring in and out. I could barely see her mouth because she closed it so tight, and I knew she was grinding her teeth. She knocked on the door, and Ree, the woman who takes care of me, answered. Sister told her everything and ordered that I be locked in my room all week without supper, reading only our sacred teachings, and being only allowed one meal in the room a day. But when Sister would leave, Ree would sneak in snacks for me. She told me more about my mother, since all I knew was that she had twins, a boy and a girl. And that's me. And that Ruby was the one that had to kill my brother. That was when I started to sneak out to find my mother's grave. It was the only time I could feel close to her. I think Ree always knew, but never said anything. Yukino stood up and shook her head. I'm sorry. I was going on and on. I didn't mean to say all that to you. It didn't have anything to do with. Would you like something to drink? Girl shook her head. Well, I'll make some tea for myself, if you don't mind. Do you need to be going anywhere soon? I don't want to keep you or anything. Again, Mukuro shook her head. Yukino invited her in and had her remove her shoes in observance of some nonsensical law neither knew much about but mutually respected, though she suspected it was more of a solution to the cleaning problem, even if Yukino needed something to kill her time. Mukuro kneeled at the table, strumming her fingers on the surface. She stopped for a moment and glanced at her nails, feeling the sudden urge to start gnawing on them. It wasn't so much a nervous tick as it was a form of self-mutilation she never kicked. In any case, it helped her male persona all the more, though that should have been long dead by now. She glanced around the room. Blank walls, all sterilized from the amount of time Yukino had at her disposal. With the exception of the table, there was no furniture. She was to be used to living in places that looked like a damn sanitarium. Too dull to be anything relaxing. Just sterile. Probably just Yukino's style, and there was a tickling sensation on the back of her hand. Mukuro looked down and saw the shimmering orb like the body of a spider, absent-mindedly traveling over her knuckles. She watched it for a few moments before the little brushes of its thick legs and her skin began to nerve her. She raised her hand and turned it over to the spider, caught off guard and fell on its back with a shallow plop like the dropping of an eggshell. She watched it curl those 8 legs towards the hourglass on its abdomen, struggling, tilting, twirling, twisting until going on its front. It turned around, ready to attack when Yukino walked up, a cup in hand, and did to the world smile on her lips. Apparently, having noticed the movement on the table, Yukino looked down and gasped. She rushed to take the arachnid in her cupped hands, mumbling a sort of apology. To the spider? To Mukuro? Both? And she ran and skipped out the door. She knelt down and opened her hands, shaking a bit to get its clutches off her, cringing a bit. When she returned, Mukuro saw why. She was bitten on her virgin white hand. So her virgin white hand was broken by one reddening bump. She held her hands to the other hide it was shaking. I'm sorry about that, Yukino said again, yet another naive grin on her face. For what? It's not as though you planted it there, Mukuro replied. For a moment she noticed that Yukino turned her head in a way that her bangs covered the curvature of her brows, pointed towards poor concern, empty concern. self-serving concern. The great geniuses and paladins of our time, with their splendor juxtaposed with memories of their flaws, no matter how obscure the offense. Gandhi hated his family. Albert Einstein was a well-known adulterer. Mother Teresa and her institutions of neglect. Oskar Schindler was shunned after saving so many lives for being born in the country that he was. Mozart and his kidney disease, Beethoven and his syphilis. Because geniuses can be fools. Because you can't be immortal and angelic. So we'll just wait for her true colors to show. Gina didn't have any apparent physical flaws. Her hair didn't have the amount of frizz that did anyone harm. Her face didn't have a single blemish, and her pores were all but sparkling. And all of its features that people slice themselves have. A face like a flattering painting or a doctored photo. A face like a new doll. Fake. What's your favorite vegetable or fruit? Or, what do you like to eat? He asked. Mukuro crooked a brow. Well, I'm trying to find things so we can get to know each other better. Do you even know your friend's favorite fruits? Mukuro. I suppose that Kazuma likes carrots. Or maybe legumes and... Wow, I guess this is a silly question to ask. Colors? Numbers? Animals? She was really trying too hard. Her side, might as well play along. No particular one, 77, and I happen to have a sort of attraction to manticores as of late. Aside from the bit about manticores, she briefly scrunched up her face, though it could have been an aversion to the beast or just because she didn't know what it was in the first place. Her face lit up. Well, I like light colors and the number 3, and I like birds the most. They're really kind of animals, you know. They like to land on my hands and sing. I could show you. Mukuro shook her head. No need to remind her of the goddess that she would sing with. Mukuro once met a man who could catch dragonflies on his fingers. But as he killed again, they slowly feared him just as everyone else had. As long as that object of desire, that stone that was the keeper of his sanity, he could hold on to the hope that one day they would land on his finger. Just one more damn time. But puberty taints innocence, and abandonment blackens it more. So he walked a fantasy world where his mother followed him, assuring him that she loved him, while this man walked on the earth looking for a place whether he denies it or not. Here was his blessed sister, who always had a mother figure and someone to love her. Somehow Mukuro couldn't help but hate her. They won't come, she said. Kina cocked her head to the side, the smile turning wry. Birds would never sing for anyone else, someone like Mukuro, and they both knew it. The goddess just couldn't understand that feeling. Is there a body of water nearby? I've heard people say they're beautiful here. Kina did a 2-step, gently clapping the tips of her fingers. Of course, there's one when you go down the stairs. Let me finish my tea and I'll take you there. As a matter of fact, she took the least gentle gulp of it like a child hurrying for a treat. She excused herself for gulping and carried the cup out of the room. Mukuro stood doing, she came back and allowed for Yukina to head in front of her, leading her down the stairs. She hopped down step by step, paused once to glance at the older woman over her shoulder before giggling and going on. She stopped Mukuro, growing adventurous, and jumped down 3 steps at once. Upon landing, she stumbled a bit, until the other woman steadied her by grabbing her shoulder. Mukuro stared down, hand clasped over her mouth like a baby doll as tears began to well up in her eyes. It was a shattered snail shell, possibly a few days old, no trace of the dead flesh, only the empty shell at the end of a shimmering thread of a trail. She turned around and stared into Mukuro's questioning eyes and mumbled an apology twice. No, you know... Yukina stammered and turned her eyes away. What am I doing? I know it's silly, but... She crouched down as her hand shook. Mukuro took her by the shoulder. When Yukina looked up at her, she turned out a hand so she could return to standing as Mukuro took her place. Crouching at Yukina's feet, she scooped up shell shards, picking up the larger pieces between finger and thumb. She closed her hands over the shattering corpse and looked up, eyes meeting once more. Saint Mary that she was stepped forward and continued on with the procession, the Queen of Bathsheba and Mary Magdalene. What? Okay, whatever. Playing the part of a hearsing coffin, the saint humming a dirge in between sniffles. Because that is how it is. Mukuro's a whore and Yukina's the angel. She walks the earth dancing upon flowering fields like while whores, murderers, and vagabonds walk in hell beneath her. Yes, the virgin and the divorcee, goddess and the beast, princess and the serf. Yet here is the damned, who once had a status in the bust, who was luckily never will be anyone. What did Yukina have to offer the world anyway? In a world where evil is easier to conceive of than good, and ugliness overpowers beauty. They reached the base of the stairs, and Yukina turned. They reached the shore as she stopped, dug the toe of her shoe into the ground. Mukuro crouched at her feet and waited for her to step away so she could drop the snail in piece by piece. Together they drew the grains of sand together in a small mound. Their fingers met in the middle just for a moment, just long enough for Mukuro to pull back instinctively. Do you think he'll go to heaven? Or she? The snail? Yukina asked, as her eyes left the grave. Heaven? Dear God, heaven? People thought about such things still? What happens to animals after they die? Do they go to the same place that we do? Well, hell. Children can dream, can't they? I don't see why not. She stood. Well, here it is. The water. I think it's lovely. I've had so many good memories here. I know I haven't been here long, but I really outweighs my sadness. Sadness? Mukuro, do you have any brothers or sisters? No? What about parents? Mukuro took a sharp intake of breath, knowing all the while Yukina could hear it, and damn it, she could feel the blood draining from her face. No. No mother, no father. Yukina saw it, but she nodded. I don't have a father. That's how my people function, you see. We're all women. I don't know if anyone knows or of us. Is this true? Kina waved her hand, indicating there was some knowledge everywhere else. Well, I also have a brother. I've never met him. I've been looking for him so long. You see, before he left here to serve you, in fact, I asked him if he could spare time to look for him. Has he ever mentioned it to you? What do you say to that? She could just break her heart and say no, that he made no attempt to do so. Wouldn't that exactly be lying, considering that it was through his stream of consciousness and his conversation with Shigure that she was even aware of Yukina's existence? He also can look for her brother, saying that would only involve staring into a mirror. But you could also claim that he didn't care enough to do anything for Yukina, just out of spite for this girl to live in luxury like she did. But hell, Adolf Hitler liked sweets, especially cream puffs, and Joseph Stalin loved his mother. And if Charles Manson can dream of being a musician, or Vlad the Impaler could love his country to death, then Mukuro could easily be capable of compassion in our sleep. He was, now that you mention it. I offered to give him help because I have a lot of connections, but he turned it down. He told me that this was something he wanted to do on his own. You know, he's about that sort of thing, I'm sure. But with doing his work and whatnot, it's hard for him to find the time. He's really dedicated to his work. If I offer to give him time off, he gets angry and refuses. He acts like he's getting special treatment sometimes. Can't give her too much of the truth, but here goes. He suspects the man might be dead. He also always expects the worst. Kuna replied. She took a stone and tossed it into the water, barely managing one skip. I always thought it was sad that he does that, because I know he's been through some really bad times. Wish I could help him see the world differently, but we're not so different sometimes. My people, I hate them. They abandoned my brother, didn't give him a second chance just because he's a boy. They could have let my mother leave to take care of us both, but they tried to kill him without a second thought, and to this day they act like it didn't happen. Not unless I try to make them tell me. Where's the justice? That's why I want my brother to live, so they can be punished. What then, Yukina? Mukuro asked. She sat down and sand laying it run between her fingers. You will have your revenge, but you'll live with the rest of your life knowing about your committing genocide. Maybe they don't deserve to live as they do, but they're not worth the rest of your life in guilt. Killing sounds like the easiest thing in the world, and the same with revenge. And in fact it is, but for someone like you, it wouldn't be worth ruining yourself just because you can always remember your deaths. Well, it's like for their states of being slipped through their fingers, there will be no turning back. That's why I say killing is easy. Anyone can slit someone's throat in cold blood for any reason whatsoever. And in fact, we all have the urge to do it at least one time in our lives. The problem comes in the afterlife. Forgetting that they were once a person with dreams and emotions. Someone who laughed and cried, maybe had a family or someone they loved. Something they would have liked to do with all their lives. Whether or not they did, you were the one who gave it all. Took all of that away, and you have to live the rest of your life holding that on you at all times. Believe me, I know. living a long time trying to figure herself out for not being in the right mind. And he knows it too, justified or not. This is what we live with every day. The man who took her in that day, he didn't have to die. She could have accepted his hospitality. And could have had the opportunity to care for her as a surrogate father, or they could have gone their separate ways. But no good deed goes unpunished. He was killed by fear. And so the saying goes, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Mukuro threw the grains of sand in her hand in no particular direction, shaking her head. It's not so much about what they deserve as it is what you deserve, Yukina. You live your whole life revolving around those you hate, and you'll never find peace. And is it really fair to your brother to make him fight a heroic battle for you? If you want revenge that much, then you should do it yourself for yourself. If you want my opinion, I respect forgiveness more than I do vengeance. It takes more of a person to forgive. And if those women cannot find the gall to forgive, then realize that they were not worth begging for. Move on with your life. Don't waste all your years on people who give a damn about you. Yukino took another stone and tossed it in the river. No. You're right. About all of it. You told me the same thing before you left, but am I a bad child for wishing I just could? I can't make that judgment. I don't know what makes a person good. Don't you think that someone who's committed all kinds of sins could also be a good person? Or a good person could turn evil? Assuming that anyone could make that judgment. All I can tell you is that you want justice, which is understandable. The world we live in, you can't always get it. It's just how things are. She stood up and shook the sand off her pants. There you came in a quick glance, eyes moving for a second. Imagine that. People like her feel rage. She cries over a dead snail, but she'd kill her own people if it meant avenging her mother. And who am I to judge? Angels don't exist in this mortal world. And if he is just some resident of hell. Hey, can I ask you something? Akina was turned toward her now. The girl looked into her face for what it felt like the first time. She had some facial features, like his, come to think of it. Same eyes, shape and size, same nose and same mouth. An androgynous face. Somehow she felt like she'd been drugged. Made her want to look away, but she remained fixed on the other woman's entire face. Do you think, he could be my brother? Hell. What makes you say that? Well, he treats me differently from everyone else, and he came to see me when I was captured, sort of. But he came out of nowhere to save me, and since then he's treated me nicer than other people. It's not because I'm a girl, because the other girls don't get attention like I do. Might as well have fun with it for a moment. He's not in love with you. Which sounded disgusting even suggesting it. Oh no, he doesn't treat you nice, does he? Excuse me? Oh, Yusuke told me you two were in love. Crow gave Yukina a look. She gave Yukina a look because then she blushed, trying to hide behind her hands. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was a joke. He does that all the time, and I should know. Sounds like something he'd do. It was one thing I liked about him. Reason would do the same kinds of things to everyone from what I remember. He could just see you as a spiritual sister, really. Most people find spiritual families in others. Let's just say he is, and he's not telling you. Can't make him come out and say it. He'll tell you in his own time. I can't tell you that he is or not because he never told me he had a sister. I'm sorry. You. Do you think I'll ever meet him? I'm sorry. I stared at the waves, weaving in and out, coming closer to her feet. Really should be going. I love him. She turned around. I love him. And I love you too. Mukuro croaked about her. They say I'm not supposed to say it so easily, but I do. I mean it, but no one ever. She walked over and kissed Mukuro on the cheek. For protection. Crow backed away slowly, hand rushing to her cheek, and walked away as Yukino watched on, probably moving faster than necessary. And